Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. My name is Dr. Hassan Saeed. I'm working at King Saud University for Health and Science, and I'm teaching the dental anatomy, morphology and occlusion. And today, inshallah, just what I'm going to show you the technique for waxing. I will start doing waxing and show you the hands while you are applying the wax to your model. But before we start doing that, just I want to show you that the instruments that we are using. This is the type of the instruments that we are using. And you have to set your instrument like that. Just to set up the first instrument, we call it spatula number 7. And this instrument we carry a big amount of wax at the beginning. Then we have another set of instruments. 2 instruments is developed by Patrick K. Thomas, and we call them PKT1 and PKT2. And this is an additive instrument as well. That means if you need to add a small amount of wax, you use these 2 instruments, so can give you details of your waxing. Then we have another instrument which is developed by Bihi and Licron, by Licron, and we call it a Licron carver. And it has 2 ends. One end it looks like a claw, like this, and then the other end it looks like a knife. Okay, this is, you can cut a big amount of wax, and the other end you can use it for carving. It will give you the details, especially if you are working on the lingual surface. Then we have some instruments that we're using. That's PKT number 3. It comes for details. You just can warm these instruments a little bit. And we come for the main carver instruments, which we call it PKT number 4. This is also developed by Patrick K. Thomas. And this is always used for carving. Okay? And these instruments, we don't heat it. And sometimes we just clean it if you want to warm it. And the last instruments we also developed by Patrick K. Thomas, and we call it PKT number 5. And you can see the end of this. Each instrument of these instruments, it has a handle or a shaft here, and then shank, and a blade, which is at the end. You can work with the blade. Okay, so a handle or a shaft. Shank, which is connecting the blade to the hand, Most of the time when you are doing your waxing, you hold it in a grip like this, and you can see this, we call it pen grip. So you use it as if you are using a pen. Okay, we call it pen gripping. So it should be steady, and you can see here that when you hold it, you come close to the shank, so it can be stable while you are doing your carving. Okay. Then we use, for the carving technique, we use in dentistry, we have so many types of wax. So, but in our projects, when we come to waxing here, we're using the inlay wax, and it comes in different forms. It's very important that you have to understand the wax that you are using, okay? Whether it comes in a stick form, and it comes in different colors. It comes in blue, red, yellow, and green, okay? And this is we call inlay casting wax. And this is another type of inlay casting wax. It comes in this form, and we have another kind of forms. Each waxes, we have so many varieties of wax you're using in dentistry, okay? But each one, it has certain properties. You have to understand it, okay? So this type of wax, daily casting wax, okay? You can see it, it is solid in this state, that in the room temperatures. And when you start warm it or heat it, it start to melt, okay? Most of the wax, they come from natural derivatives, okay? It's called here microcrystalline or paraffin. It form about 40 to 60% of the wax, okay? And this is a petroleum derivative, okay? But this kind of petroleum derivative, which is natural, it flakes and the melting temperature is low, so they have to add another natural type of wax, which it comes from plants or come from trees, to improve the physical properties of this wax. So we have to understand that. So the type of wax we're using, it is not purely a natural wax, but they add some synthetic wax to improve the physical properties. Most important things of this type of inlay wax, that it should be solid in the room temperature, and sometimes we have type of wax we use it inside the oral cavity, so that means it should melt above 37. So when it melts, and then it becomes solid when you cool it, okay? This is very important. The other things, that means it should have dimensional stability, even that this type of wax, it contracts a little bit when it's set, when it becomes solid, but this can be compensated in our way. Most important things, that we have to carve this wax, that should not be flaked or cracked while you are carving, okay? This is very important. It should not be distorted while you are doing your carving. This is very important property. So this is the things that we have to put in mind. So the wax should be in a room temperature. We have to keep it in a dry area, and we have to look at the time when they manufacture this wax, not to be exposed to sun. That don't keep it in the sun, because sometimes most of the boys, when they drive their car, they just take the wax and keep it in the trunk, and this is wrong, okay? It should be in your locker most of the time. The other things of this wax, okay, because as we said, we have certain physical properties, and these physical properties will give you the smoothness and shine at the end. So that means you have not to burn the wax. Burning of the wax, that means don't heat it too much, because there are some volatile oils will evaporate. That means it will change the physical properties. So at the end, you cannot get a good result. You cannot get a good result. Constituency of the wax, as we said, it is a crystalline of paraffin, and then they add the gandamar and the carnauba wax, and then we have some beeswax. We added to the wax to improve. Each one of them improve the physical property of the wax. Some of them, they has, this is paraffin, is brittle. Then we add the carnauba, which is tough. Then we add the bees wax, which is give it a smoothness when you are doing carving. And the other things, we add some other type of plants, a candelia wax, that to improve the melting temperature of the wax. This is very important. Okay. Now we are going to show you how we're going to start doing the waxing and what technique we are using, okay? Most important, then you have to put on your flame with the Bunsen burner. The Bunsen burner, just we have a black and red. We put the black up, and then we have a safety key, which is we put it on. We have to press it down and put it on. The gas, it comes, and we put it on like this, and then you put the torch. When we look at this, okay, there is a flame. We have to reduce it, and you can reduce the flame, especially in the summertime. We have to reduce it a little bit, though we don't have to have it a long flame like this. Then we can put the black a little bit down, and we have the pilot, and we have the main flame. If we look at the flame, all the flame, it comes in zone. But if we look at the zones of the flame, that the one which is close to the end of the burner, which is the bluish one, this is what we're using, we call it the reducing zone. And this is the hot zone down there. We never put our instrument on the top there. And you can see there is sometimes a red area at the end, okay? So when we use like that, we look at the projects, we give you a project. So look at the project at the beginning, and then we give you the other foam that you are going to do the waxing, okay? So the projects that will give you a full foam projects, then we have to say, okay, how we look at the surface, how many surfaces we have. We have one, which is the facial, and then we have two, which is the lingual, and then we have a mesial surface, and then we have a distal surface, and then we have incisor surface or the incisor edge here, okay? With your pencil, we're just starting to mark the cemento enamel junction, which is the cemento enamel junction, which is separating the crown from the root. And just mark it like that so you know that. Knowing your anatomy, then the cemento enamel junction, when I look at it from facial and lingual, it looks convex toward the root. When I look at it from the mesial and distal, it looks a little bit convex toward the crown, okay? So this is your big model, how it looks like that, okay? Then if we look at this, we have to do the measurements, because most of the time we have to measure. We have a measuring gauge like this, we call it a poly gauge, okay? This metric, you can see it here, is a movable one, and then you have this, the ruler, which is a fixed one. And we have two tongues, you can see from here and there. Then you take the measurements and you just find out what's the measurements. This is the facial, how it looks like that. And then you can read your measurements from here. But if I look at the project I gave you, this is the facial. And then the lingual, when we look at the lingual, we find out that the lingual surface is missing. Okay? So all the lingual surface, part of the mesial, part of the distal, and a little bit part of the root. Again, you have to mark your cemento enamel junction, because this is will tell you the end of the crown and the beginning of the root. Like that. And here we can see here, this is all the lingual surface, all right, and part of the mesial, and part of the distal one, and part here from the root, okay? When you start looking at that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to add wax to this to establish outline form. The most important, you have to put certain points or your projects. Okay, in this projects, what I'm going to do, we look at the full formed one. Okay, the full formed one, this is the lingual surface of the full formed one. This is the cemento enamel junction. This is an elevated area, which we call it the cingulum. All right, and this is another elevated area, we call it the marginal ridge. One is mesial and one is distal. And then we have here a depression in this area, and we call this the lingual fossa. And at the end here, we have the incisal edge or the incisal ridge here. So your projects will be to establish the outline form first. Okay, that means I just put this one, I take my projects, I'm going to fill the whole surface with wax to establish the outline form first, okay? Then I have to establish the cemento enamel junction. Then I have to add the area of the cingulum. I have to add the areas of the marginal ridge and the fossa, which is down here in the middle, and finally the incisal edge. Okay? So first of all, when you take this, you take the large instruments, which is spatula number 7. Then you have a tissue, a clean tissue most of the time. You have to clean your instruments while you are working, okay? As we said, okay, when you warm this instruments, we just warm it. That means you don't have to overheat it, okay? We don't have to bring the wax which is close to the flame, okay? But the wax should be close to your projects. You just hold it like this, and you hold your project like this, and then you hold the instruments, as we said, as a pen gripping, okay? Pen grasp, you hold it like this. We just warm the instruments, okay? We have to make sure just a little bit warm. It's not hot, because if you heat it too much, you are going to, okay? The wax will going to burn, and will change the physical properties of the wax and will not give you a good result. So just warm. And here, the spatula number 7, we start with the spatula number 7, and just at the end, at the top, we don't have to be any volatile, okay? And we'll just go back and slowly just drip it. Drip the whole thing. Drip the whole thing. And just cover it. And it's very important, gentle blow. You never use the air. Sometimes students, they use air like this. Okay, this is, no, don't accept it, because if you use a fast setting, because we want it to set it slowly, because if you use air, it will set fast, and this is what created a stress inside the wax and will not give you a good result. So a gentle blow like this, just to warm. And you can see here, I'm going to add to cover the whole thing. You clean between adding, because I want most of the time a fresh wax, okay? When I take a fresh wax, because we don't want the wax to be exposed so many times for the burners, okay? Just I need a fresh wax to add, and you can see here, just like a brush, gentle blow, and it's set. You can see here, and then I clean again, and I'll take it. Most of the time, take it less time, okay? Your spatula number 7, less time when to warm it, because it is already warm, because this is metal and it keeps the temperature. All right, you can see here, I just add, and it go with as a brush, gentle blow. You can see the wax stayed in one area. It makes the ridge. So now you can see the ridge started to be created, okay? Because I stopped the wax because it flows easily. So as if like a paint, you can take it, all right, and decide the amount of wax you are going to take. This is very important as well. And at most of the time, when you put the wax, you have to make sure that the other end of your spatula is touching the old wax. That means the old wax is melted and become as one unit with the fresh wax that you are adding. This is most important. You don't have just to do it like that. This is wrong, okay? When you apply it, you feel the other end, which does not carry wax. I put it there, I touch the old wax, then I let the wax to flow down. That means all of the wax is, okay, melted together, And as we said, decide the amount of wax you are just carrying. The amount of wax you are just carrying. Gentle blow, most of the time a gentle blow, okay? If I want to use the other end of spatula number 7, you have to make sure the other end is cold enough, because you don't switch it, it will burn your hand here like this. Make sure it is cold before you switch to use the other end. The other end will carry a small amount, okay? We just warm it like this as well, okay? We never heat it, okay? Just take this in consideration. Warm the instruments. Don't heat the instruments, because I will show you if I heat the instrument too much, and you can see here the wax, it will burn. You see? You see? And you see it here? The wax is burning like that, and this is wrong, okay? We don't have to do this, and you can see here it started to melt. That means you are changing the physical properties of the wax. That's why we said just warm the instruments. Just warm it a little bit, and make sure that when you carry a molten wax, because we don't want a hard wax, just a molten wax. And you just like this, we add it, and we start adding to the projects. We start adding. And clean most of the time. We have to carry a fresh wax. And as we said, decide the amount of wax you want to carry. This is very important. And you keep adding the wax till you get the outline form, and you reach the stage of measurements. You start to do some measurements before you can carry on, okay? I'll show you now how to do the measurements. Just put the instruments down, and just will put your wax down, and this is how it looks like that. You just fill the whole surface, okay? Hold the surface, that the lingual surface, and the mesial and distal and incisal. But I just put it, and I look, I get the measurements of this one. So first of all, I want just to carry the facial lingual measurements. You just hold it like that, and then you just measure it, the highest part, which is the cervical, like this. You close it from here so it will not move, and then take it to your project and check it out. So you can see here the measurements exactly is correct measurement at the cervical here. All right. Then I have to check the measurements here at the incisal part, like that, and then I will go here like this. You can see, yes, it's exactly measurements, a little bit measurements here. Then I have to check the measurements of from the incisal to the cervical. So that means the coronal part, which is the crown ends at the cervical, like this, from the incisal to the cervical. just hold it so it will not move. And then I'll check it here on the projects like that. So just you decide, here is your cement enamel junction. A little bit like this, we decided. Then you can use this carving and instruments, which we call it PKT number 4, okay? We just, all right, here, the difference between at the cement enamel junction, here it is convex toward the crown, but when I go mesial and distally, it is here, it's convex here like that. Then I'll just start doing carving. The difference between the crown and the root, it doesn't look like a depression, it's just a difference is level between the root and the crown. Just to start doing carving here, to flush a little bit of the root down so that the cement enamel junction will show. A little bit, okay? We don't have to use it. All the time we clean our instruments, carving instruments. And when you start carving, most of the time you carve in one direction, all right? If you're going from cervical to the incisor, just keep it in one direction, okay? Because if you start carving in different direction, this will scratch the wax. And start carving here from the cervical to the incisor, from mesial and then from distal. The difference from mesial and distal, in the distal is a little bit curved. All right, it shows a curve and more rounded here, but in the mesial it looks straight. And here in the incisor, just a little bit like that. And then when I look at the details, all right, the details, that means I have a marginal ridge, which is curved one, which is the distal. Then I have a marginal ridge, which we call it mesial marginal ridge, which looks straight, while the distal marginal ridge here, it looks curved because the profile distal is a little bit curved. When I come to the angle, which is down at the incisor side, we have difference between the mesoincisal and the distal incisal angle. The mesoincisal angle, it looks straight, while the distal incisal angle, it looks rounded. It looks rounded. But here, it looks a little bit thick at the distal. So we have to reduce it a little bit here at the distal as well. So when I come to the incisor, it's a little bit thick at the area of the distal, so you can carve it, all right, distomesially in one direction like this. And then you have to clean it with the wax, with the tissues. Most of the time you use a softer tissue to clean it, and you clean your instruments because we don't have the debris, okay? If you have any debris of wax, it will stick to the projects, and this is not good, okay? We just clean the wax. the debris of wax, we clean it. We clean it from the instruments, which is, you see the debris with a stick. You can see it here, it sticks. You have to remove it. Because at the end, when it comes to polish, this one is just got stuck and you cannot get a good finish and polish. Give a consideration most of the time to cement to enamel junctions while you are doing your carving. Okay. we clean it and we look at this one and the area of the cingulum with just a little bit the end of the cingulum. Then we can use an instrument which we call it PKT number 2. This PKT number 2, again, you can see there is a handle and shaft, and then the shank, and then the blade at the end. And it carries a small amount of wax. All right, and good things about this, you can make line with this one. If it is start to smoke out, just cool it down, and you can see here, this is the only amount of wax you can carry. You can see here, you can make a dot, a small here like that, okay? And you can make a line with this one. It can carry, it can go and run. You can make a line like this. You can see it here. So it depends on the amount of wax you're going to carry. A small amount of wax, all right, a small amount of wax. You have to melt it, make sure, and then at the end here, just a small here at the end of the cingulum. All right, here at the end of the cingulum. Just and I make the cingulum a little bit convex and extend it a little bit. Most of the time, make sure that you have a molten wax. Okay, like this. And you add it in the cingulum area, and we come to measure it again. Clean the instruments, warm it, take a small amount and add here at the end of the cingulum area. Then if I want to carve, just gentle blow like this, and you can use the other end of the licron. You can see it like a clue here, and you can carve a little bit here like that. The area at the end or the incisor part of the cingulum, and then in a round motion, and then in the area of the fossa, or just deepen it a little bit. We clean. Then I go back to PKT number 4, put the wax, start just doing carving, and you can see that the carving is most of the time is from one end to another and in round motions. Okay, this is here. Cingulum. Clean the instruments, make sure everything is clean. We clean almost all the time. We use soft tissues or gauze. Alright, I have to make sure that the incisor is a little bit flatter, the incisor edge. We clean the instruments. We clean the surface of the wax. Again, the area of the cingulum, which is more rounded. Because the cingulum is a bulbous elevation at the cervical surface, at the lingual surface of all anterior teeth, with a maxillary or mandibular. Okay. Most of the time while you're waxing, try to avoid to touch the wax with your hand, because your hand will be a little bit wet, and this will leave an imprint of your finger on the wax. Okay, so we try to avoid that while we are doing the waxing or the carving. I go back for the measurements and make sure that everything is okay. I look back at my projects. Cervical surd, the area of the cingulum. Then I look at it here, at the area of the cingulum. You see, yes, it is okay here. It's a different friction of millimeters. When I look at the incisor here, I measure it like that. Then I go back to the projects. Yes, there's a frictions of millimeter. I have to remove it. So a little bit I have to remove from the incisor, because the small frictions of millimeter like that. Alright, so I just start carving again the area of the incisor. Clean the instruments. The other end of the instruments, if you want to deepen a little bit and smoothen the area of the fossa, you can use the other end of the instrument, this one, which is a smooth rounded one. So that means it work on the area here, which is the fossa. So you can see it here. It is smooth in this area like that. And then we clean it. Look at the cement enamel junctions. We have to make it clear. and we said there is a difference of levels between the root and the crown, and this is the cement to enamel junction. Okay, a difference of level between the root. The root is a little bit lower and the crown is a little bit high, and this is the difference. That means it is not aligned. Okay, it is not aligned like this, and just you make it like this because the root is lower, and you can see here. And we clean it with the tissues. And then we have a nylon socks, which is a softer one, like this, and just you hold it with your finger, and you just will try to clean the whole thing. Then we have a piece of cotton rods like that, okay, and you just use your soap, sabun, all right, you just will clean it. That means if you have an imprint of your finger or any remnants, you just use sabun or a soap, just round bardo, in a round motion like this. We have to clean it. Just clean it مع الصابون شوية, just like that. We'll take any remnants and any prints of your finger if you touch your wax while you are doing your waxing, okay? And just like that. Can go back again with the nylon socks. All right, you just want to polish it. Just hold it with your finger like this, and as smoothly you just go around it. You don't have to press hard and make it in a motion, all right, because this is your polishing, all right. Motion action like that. It's a motion action most of the time, and then in the middle. This is, will polish it, it will smooth it a little bit, because one of the properties of this inlay casting wax, it should be smooth when it is polished. This is very important. And if you notice while I was carving, it does not flick. Okay, it does not flick. It just carve it smoothly, and you can carve it. Go back for soap, sabun. Polish it, bardo in a motion action, like that, and it will be highly polished, okay? Polished wax, you know, because your polished enamel, normally, okay, when you drink water, water would not stick in your enamel because it is highly polished, but if it is cured, it will stick. And this is the properties now in this wax, highly polished wax. And this is the end result. You can see it here now of your final projects. You can see cement enamel junction. Okay, you can see here, this is the level of the cement enamel junction all the way around. You can see a depression, and this is the area of the cingulum here, and this is the area of the fossa, and the two marginal ridge which will straight, which we call it the mesolingual marginal ridge, and then another marginal ridge, you can see it here from that which is distal, and we call it distolingual marginal ridge, which is scar. And this is the final result of your projects. You can see it now here. We can put it here if you want to see the details, and then the reflection of light comes on that project. So normally now you can see that we reconstructed the lingual and part of the mesial and the distal and the incisal, and then we get the outline formed. Then we went into the details, which we have a cement enamel junction. Then we have to go for the measurements to decide where I'm going to put the cement enamel junction, and then we have to go for the details, which is the cingulum, the marginal ridge, the two lingual marginal ridge, and then we have the incisor ridge here, and we have the fossa, which is depression here, down here, in between the incisor and the cingulum. Okay? And when you finish, most of the time you have your original model with you. You have to take the measurements, and the measurements you have to take it with this kind of tool, which we call it the VHI, okay, measuring gauge. This is very important because measurements is very important in dentistry, because you are working in a very small field and you are working in areas that even a fraction of millimeter has an effect on your final results. Okay, so you have to be very meticulous with the measurement. This is very, very important, taking the measurements while you give me your final. Okay, because any variation in the measurements is not right, and this will give you a poor result at the end. Because while you are doing your waxing, normally, okay, the waxing is, you have this is the exact replica of your original one. Okay, if we look at this model, okay, this is an incisor, maxillary incisors, okay, and you can see here, this is the lingual, all right, this is the lingual, and this is a big model. If you put the big model here beside this, you can see the areas. We can see here cement enamel junction, and the cingulum, marginal ridges, and the incisal edge here at the end. Okay, final results, highly polished and smooth wax. This is very important because this is the exact replica of your enamel later on. Okay, we don't want it to have it rough. If you have rough, that means while you are applying, okay, you applied a dry wax, you have some layering. Okay, you did not use the right zone, as we said at the beginning. You have to use the lower zone, you don't have to use the top zone. Okay, the reducing zone here, this is the zone you are using while you are doing it. Use the right type of the wax, the inlay casting wax, whether it comes in a stick or whether it comes in these forms. Okay, and it comes in different colors. Okay, you have to make sure this wax is properly stored. That means in a dry, cold area, and never take your wax and put it in your car, especially in the summertime, because this will change the physical properties of the wax and will not give you a good result. Will not give you a good result. Okay. As we said, the waxing and instruments, you have most of the time a spatula number 7, which is here to carry the big amount of wax, and then the other PKT 1 and 2 small amount of wax. Make sure that don't heat the instrument, just warm it. And this is the trick, okay, because if you overheat it, that means you are going to volatile the properties of the wax. Just warm it. Carry the amount of wax you need. You never dry the wax too fast. A single blow with your mouth, this will be enough. Don't use air, because air, it causes a quick set and it dries the wax and it causes some stress inside the wax, and it will start to crack when you are doing your carving. Okay, and this the end result, you can see it here, and I hope we give you another sessions while talking about full wax up. And when we talk about full wax up, that means we're going to talk about the relation of the adjacent tooths to each others and the relation of the opposing tooths to each others and how they close in occlusion. Thank you very much, and hopefully that explained everything in the technique of waxing, and I showed you the hints how you use it. Most of the time when you apply the wax, you have to make sure that you melt the previous wax, you clean your waxing and instruments in between, because as we said, we need a fresh wax when you apply it most of the time. This is the most important thing. You don't take an old wax and add it, because if you expose the wax to so many heating, that means it will change the physical properties and will not give you a good result. Thank you.